Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. Today we're taking a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. And my hot take, the Toronto Maple Leafs will miss the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll be taking a look at that in this video. If you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe down below. And let's get into today's video. Alright, so before we get too far into today's video, I want to give a quick plug to our Instagram and Twitter handles at goalline_hockey. Links will be in the description down below, as well as throughout this video. And make sure to check out our Patreon, where you can give a weekly or a monthly subscription to support the channel. That is always appreciated. Thank you guys so much for that. And let's get into today's video. Alright, so before you Maple Leaf fans, if you have not already been running your fingers through the comment section, saying, what are you talking about? The Maple Leafs are going to make the playoffs, this and that. Hold on a second. Now, let me just talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs for a second. So the Toronto Maple Leafs are one of these teams that we've seen, unfortunately, their window has been there. They've had a window, and you could consider they still have a window right now with Mitch Marner, Auston Matthews, William Nylander, John Tavares. But over the years, they've started to lose key aspects of their team. And I just don't know how they're going to be able to fight this flat salary cap, because I think Dubas had a plan of what he was going to do with this team. And now the flat salary cap has completely bulldozed any of those thoughts, specifically for a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, a lot of these contracts are actually not bad contracts. The issue is it's not the duration, because these contracts are going to be ending over, John Tavares and Mitch Marner being the longest at the next 5 years, but everybody else, Auston Matthews, 4 years left, Nylander, 4 years left, Kerfoot is the next guy up at 3 years, which at 3.5 doesn't hurt you that much. But everybody else, it's kind of, you don't know what you're getting. And I think with the Maple Leafs, the issue is, they expected the salary cap to continue to move up, which it has not. And with the new CBA agreement and everything that was supposed to be happening here in 2021, we didn't expect a worldwide pandemic to occur, and that definitely had an impact on the Maple Leafs and their window of opportunity and what Kyle Dubas' plan was, or the Shanna plan. So let's take a look, before you Leaf fans get all pissy and whatever, let's take a look at their roster here for a minute. So, according to dailyfaceoff.com, you have Zach Hyman, Auston Matthews, and Mitch Marner on your top line. Ilya Mikheyev, John Tavares, and William Nylander on your second line. Third line, Alex Kerfoot, Joe Thornton, and Jimmy Vesey. And then the fourth line is Nick Robertson, Jason Spezza, and Wayne Simmonds. So, the top six is still solid. Now remember, they had some key departures this offseason. Andreas Janssen at $3 million. Kasperi Kapanen, which he was sent off, I believe was at Pittsburgh. I believe he's with the Pittsburgh Penguins now. So, Toronto has been, I'm not even talking about the blue line. Up front, they've had some real big hits to their group. Now, I'm not saying that they can't turn that around, but based off of what we've seen, Kasperi Kapanen at $3.2 million, which is a sweetheart deal for a top six forward in the NHL. So, the Leafs right there, you lose Janssen and Kapanen. Now, who did they replace Janssen and Kapanen with? Let's take a look. Right? So, who did they replace those two players with? Jimmy Vesey and Wayne Simmonds. I don't know if those are upgrades by any means. Okay. So, all right, so maybe not, all right? Then the devil's advocate, all right, well, Vesey and Simmonds are not better. But we've got Joe Thornton down the middle, and we've got Nick Robertson, who looked really solid last season. You're correct. But we've never seen Joe Thornton in Toronto, which we don't know how he's going to play this season. Remember, he is getting there in age. He's getting up there. He's in his 40s. Nick Robertson, he's the opposite. He's so young, and we don't know his full potential yet. So we don't even know really what Nick Robertson is at this point. And you've still got the same top six. Hyman, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Mikheyev. Now, Mikheyev usually would be in the middle six, more likely on the third line. But now the Kapanen has moved out, and now that they moved Janssen, Mikheyev has had his shift. His opportunities have moved up, which is great for him. But for the team overall, is that an upgrade? Then we look at the blue line, which I think they actually improved this offseason. You've got Morgan Rielly, who stays the same, and instead of Tyson Barrie on the right side, you have TJ Brodie, which I think is an upgrade. Now, TJ Brodie has had some injury issues over the past couple of seasons. You look at his numbers, he's actually been pretty good with the Calgary Flames, and he's been a big part of that really solid group there. Chatham, Ontario native, last season, 19 points last season in 64 games, which is not terrible, but he's never produced. He's produced 45 points in a season, but consistently he's been around 30 to 35 points per season, which is solid. And his numbers overall in the NHL, he's got 266 points in 634 NHL games, which is pretty solid. And I have to admit, he is a guy that, a former fourth-round pick back in 2008 for Calgary, he has really emerged into a player. But the problem is, we look at everybody else. You've got Jake Muzzin, who returns, which can be good. Justin Hall, again, now he's in your top four. How do you feel about that? Now, looking at some of these other defensive units around the NHL, this is still an upgrade compared to some of those. But in that Atlantic Division, I don't know how this is going to hold up. Travis Dermott, they return him on a contract, which is good. But again, is that a really solid upgrade? And Zach Bogosian, who I think is an interesting move, because I wouldn't say he's an upgrade over the defenseman that they've had in Ron Hainsey or some of those other guys, but the grit factor definitely is a part of Zach Bogosian. But again, how much is that in terms of an upgrade? Wow. So we have Ryan Strome news, which I'll be talking about that later. Wow. So that's good to hear. But speaking of the Maple Leafs, you've got their depth. Who is in the depth system, right? Behind Bogosian, behind Justin Hall, because I hate to say it, that's showing lack of depth right up there in their top six, that they have to bring those guys in. But the good news is you've got guys like Mikko Lehtinen, who hopefully will come over from the Finnish league at some point. Rasmus Sandin, who was a former first-round pick a couple years back. He's 20 years old. He's a left-shot defenseman. I would not be surprised if he ends up in this lineup, maybe beating out a Travis Dermott or Justin Hall potentially in the top four. But besides that, the Leafs are interesting because you've got some guys. I mean, we've heard about Timothy Liljegren. We know he's going to be in this system. He is a guy that we're always going to hear about. You've got Philip Crow, Mac Hollowell, and just a couple of these other weird names. Christian Rubens, Calle Rosen. We've heard his name in the system for a while. Martin Marincin just cannot leave the Toronto Maple Leafs, can he? But that's the good news for the Leafs, is they've got Liljegren, they've got Rosen, they've got a couple of guys that, Sandin, Lehtinen, those are depth guys. But for this season in particular, I think the Maple Leafs didn't really upgrade their defense. It was more of a replacement. TJ Brodie was a replacement to a guy that didn't work. So is that an upgrade? I guess, because at least you're not going with Tyson Barrie, who we know didn't work with Toronto. But then it brings up the question, is that really an upgrade? And is this team going to be better than last season? Guys, in the qualification round, they lose to the Columbus Blue Jackets in the first round, a team that is really not that heavy up front. They've got a very solid defense, but in terms of up front, they are not that heavy. They don't have that superstar talent, and of course the internet goes out. But this is not a team that lost Artemi Panarin, Matt Duchene, Ryan Dzingel, over the past couple of seasons, Sergei Bobrovsky, and they still beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are paying the core four, that amount of money. The Maple Leafs, guys, this could be an interesting offseason next year for the Toronto Maple Leafs, because if Kyle Dubas misses the playoffs here in 2021, even if he gets into the playoffs, let's say he sneaks in. My hot take is they will miss the playoffs next year, because I think other teams in that division are better. Tampa Bay, despite the fact that they are going to lose probably somebody this offseason, I think they get in the playoffs. The Boston Bruins are an interesting team, but I still think they have the star power up front. I think the Boston Bruins get back to the playoffs. And then you look at some of these other teams that are on the rise. The Montreal Canadiens, the Buffalo Sabres. Now that's 4 teams that could potentially be ahead of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And let's not even get into the fact of goaltending, because Freddie Andersen showed in the postseason specifically that he has struggled in the playoffs with the Maple Leafs. Now, is that because of the tactics of the head coaching staff or the lack of, defensive-minded players on the Maple Leafs? Or maybe it's a combination of all of those things. But in my opinion, the Toronto Maple Leafs are not capable of getting over that hump with this team. And with the salary cap implications that they have, and not to the fault completely of Kyle Dubas because of the flat salary cap, but with what he's had to work with, the Toronto Maple Leafs are in a heck of a spot. And you look at other teams around the league that have been able to get guys to sign better contracts. I mean, guys, have you looked at the Colorado Avalanche? The contracts that Joe Sakic has been able to sign there, or Steve Yzerman, what he's done with the Tampa Bay Lightning. You know what, guys? This is what's going to be the fall of Kyle Dubas. Let's just take a look at this real quick, if it's going to load. But the contracts that Joe Sakic and Steve Yzerman have been able to sign with their respective teams. Let's just go into this here. The Colorado Avalanche. These contracts are ridiculous. Absolutely insane. Now, they're going to have some issues next season when Gabe Landeskog's contract is up. But right now, Mikko Rantanen, okay? Same age as Mikko Rantanen, is around the same age as Mitch Marner, right? So Marner's getting 10.9 or something like that. Mikko Rantanen, 9.25 for the next 5 seasons. Nathan MacKinnon, one of the, if not, in my opinion, possibly the best players in the NHL behind Connor McDavid, $6.3 million for the next 3 seasons. Gabriel Landeskog, $5.5 million. Gabriel Landeskog, the captain of the Colorado Avalanche, $5.5 million. Andre Burakovsky at 4.9. He signed that this offseason. Nazem Kadri at 4.5. Eric Johnson, $6 million. He's been one of the best defensemen on that team. $6 million. Samuel Girard, $5 million. Signed this offseason. $5 million per season forever for the next 7 years. So guys, why don't the Maple Leafs have any of those contracts? Now, a lot of people have been saying that the character and the culture that Joe Sakic has created there is very similar to Tampa Bay, just without the signing bonus, because obviously taxes are higher in Colorado than in Tampa. But the scenario is the same. Nikita Kucherov, one of the best goal scorers in the NHL, $9.5 million forever. Steven Stamkos, $8.5 for the next 4 years. Braden Point, $6.75 this season. Yanni Gourde, a little over $5. Tyler Johnson, $5 million for 4 years. Victor Hedman, under $8 million for the next 5 seasons. Under 8. Ryan McDonough, a little under 7 for the next 6 years. Vezina winning goaltender, probably one of the best goaltenders in the NHL over the past 3 seasons. Andrei Vasilevsky, $9.5 million. Do you see any 10s, 11s, 12s? No. And it's 2 or 3 or 4 players. That's now $4 to $5 to $6 to $7 million saved in cap space. And if every player does that, you have what you have in Tampa Bay and Colorado. And if you don't do that, and you have players holding out, and you give in, you end up having a scenario like the Maple Leafs, where the Maple Leafs are paying too much money to their top guys. $11.63 for the next 4 years on Austin Matthews. So basically, they're just paying for him to walk away when he's 28 years old, in his prime in the NHL. John Tavares, 5 years. He's going to be 35 at the conclusion of this contract. And as he continues to get older, his biggest issue is his skating. And as he continues to age and these guys start to leave, by the end of that contract, he's going to be a crippled mess. As good of a player as John Tavares is, and you see the Tavares paper, I have no hate for John Tavares. I love John Tavares. I wish he re-signed with the Islanders, but it's a blessing in disguise. Because as his skating continues to that was the big issue when John Tavares was drafted, was his lack of skating. And as the NHL gets faster and faster every year, he's falling back every season seemingly. He's a great leader. He's a very... I don't even know what I'm going to say. I don't think he's the best leader for the Maple Leafs. Because he's not that Sidney Crosby, that Nathan MacKinnon. He's just not that guy. And I don't know how... I don't know. But I think that was a mistake there, if I'm going to be honest. Mitch Marner for the next 5 years at almost 11. Guys, he's not even putting up the same numbers as Nikita Kucherov. Why does he get 11? William Nylander, that contract is actually not that bad at 7. But, I mean, and then what happens in 2 years when Morgan Riley is done with his $5 million? He's on a sweetheart deal right now, getting paid the same as TJ Brody. And they still have no cap space. Why? Because you paid Austin Matthews almost 12. You paid Tavares 11. And Marner almost 11. And what have you even proven? Tampa has won Stanley Cups. Colorado is on the verge of winning a cup. I'm calling it now. Colorado, if they don't win, they could win the Stanley Cup this year. With that mega team that they have. And why can't I say that about Toronto? Because they have no depth. Because they've spent all their money on their top players. And I don't know what they're going to do about it. And when Freddie leaves this offseason because he gets 50 shots on him every game, what's going to happen to the Toronto Maple Leafs moving forward, guys? I think Kyle Dubas, this will be his last year. I think the Maple Leafs are going to have to do a little bit of soul-searching next offseason. Because this is not a team as heavy and front-loaded as it is. Once those two top lines are not on the ice, the Maple Leafs are a hazard. They are traffic cones. Even with Wayne Simmons in there, even with some of these other guys they've added, Jimmy Vesey has been exiled from the New York Rangers, exiled from the Buffalo Sabres. In their top 6, he has been exiled. And now he goes to the Leafs, which I hope works out, but he is not the solution. He is not a replacement to a guy like Kasperi Kapanen. Get out of here. So guys, let me know in the comment section down below. Leafs fans around the NHL, do you have the Toronto Maple Leafs legitimately making the playoffs in the 2021 NHL season? Do you think they will make the postseason next year? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey and want to see the latest news around the NHL, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe down below. Thank you so much for watching. And God help the Toronto Maple Leafs.